Hi everyone, my name is Payana and welcome to my channel.
So it has come to my attention recently that elves are not as present in fantasy writing as once they were. Gone are the days where you could just pick a random fantasy novel off a bookstore shelf and it automatically had elves in it. If it didn't, it wasn't a real fantasy novel. But at some point in the last 10 to 15 years, that changed. And fantasy authors were like, yeah, we're just going to write about magicians now and dragons. Awful lot of dragons. Now, I'm not complaining about this. I love a good magician and also a good dragon. The elves, though, they had a certain charm. They brought a certain je ne sais quoi to a fantasy world. So I decided to go looking for them. And I've come up with a list of fantasy novels that all contain elves. So here we go. The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Because obviously, I can't make a video about elves without mentioning Tolkien at least once. It's the lore. So if you've ever wondered how Middle-earth came to be, how the elves came to be, and dwarves and men, how the rings were created, and what the hell Silmarils are anyway, well, basically, what were the events that led to The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings being possible in the first place? Well, look no further. This is the book you need to read. Also, if you're a fan of black metal, this is where they get all the band titles from. Interestingly, this book was actually rejected by Tolkien's editor when he proposed it as a prequel to The Hobbit and was only published posthumously by his son Christopher Tolkien. To the great pleasure of all of us fantasy nuts. The Legend of Drist by R.A. Salvatore. This is part of the Dungeons & Dragons extended universe, The Forgotten Realms. It follows the story of Drizzt Do'Urden, the dark elf born into the evil underground city of Menzoberranzan, where he is brought up to be a ruthless killer. However, Drizzt's personality and worldview doesn't align with the philosophy and just general way of being of Menzoberranzan. He is very moral, with an acute sense of justice, which doesn't really suit the cutthroat, evil, dark environment that he grew up in. So he decides to leave this underground world and journey into the light, to become the romantic hero he is destined to be. Salvatore's writing is brilliant and beautiful. He is especially good at fight scenes. He really has you sitting on the edge of your seat. His character work's amazing. A real joy to read. Oh god, where are you, you sod? Where are you hiding? Oh, you're over there, aren't you? Oh god, I'm such an idiot. I'm an idiot. The Elven Trilogy by Bernhard Hennen. This is a German fantasy series very much inspired from traditional Nordic folklore and epic sagas. It follows the story of Mandred, a human who journeys into the elf world to save his village from a demon. He then goes on an adventure with two elves, Nuramon and Faradin, in a quest to save the woman they love from banishment. Because romantic chivalry is still a thing. Like, come on. This is the series that actually got me wondering where the elves had gone in the first place. So this is what sparked this whole endeavor. It's really super fun and it honestly gets better as it goes along. Hennen is super good with his character work, even just the description of a nice traditional fantasy, because it's nice to go back to basics sometimes. A Deal with the Elf King by Elise Kova. This book is about a human girl called Luella who is abducted by the Elf King to come and make spring happen in his world. And then romance happens. Yeah, this is like a trashy romance novel. Of all the books I read, this is the one that impressed me the least. I thought that Kova missed a lot of tricks with her writing. She tries to portray Luella as having potentially been the victim of an abuser and manipulator before she meets the Elf King, who abducts her. I mean, he's kind of a nice guy, but like, it's kind of weird. A lot of missed points and missed tricks. So yeah, it was a bit disappointing. If you like trashy romance, this is the book you gotta read. The Last Smile in Sunder City by Luke Arnold. Yeah, the same Luke Arnold who's in Black Sails. Okay, this was the only novel that took me by surprise. I was led to believe it was in the Jim Butcher / urban fantasy realm, which it is. Only it has an awful lot of magical creatures in it. This video is mainly focusing on elves, but there is a noticeable lack of all fantasy races in fantasy literature these days. Dwarves, orcs, goblins, whatever. They're all absent, but Luke Arnold decided to make up for all of that by cramming literally everything in here. This novel follows the story of Fetch Phillips, a man-for-hire / detective who is asked to look into the disappearance of a teacher, who's a vampire, incidentally. All of this takes place in a world where magic has vanished, so every single magical creature depended on magic to live, and then one day the magic just stopped. It's really interesting because I've already read several series where the kind of end game is to get rid of all magic, but this is the first one I've read where everyone has to deal with the absence of magic. It's super interesting and super well written. A lot happens in 300 pages. I'm not going to go too much in detail into it here because I have book 2 lined up and I want to do an in-depth analysis of this. It is so good. The introspection of Fetch Phillips, who turns out was one of the people who contributed to magic disappearing, and how he deals with essentially having betrayed all his magical friends on a day-to-day basis. It's really good. There's a very strong understanding of psychology. Of all the novels I read, this is definitely the one that impressed me the most. It is one of the best, if not the best, novels I've read this year. Exiles Redemption by Lee Dunning. So at some point in all of my endeavors, Amazon caught on to what I was doing. It was like, oh, you're looking for elves. Well, try this. So this is a self-published author on Amazon. I didn't really know what to expect from this at first, but actually it's really good. Very much inspired from Dungeons and Dragons and R.A. Salvatore. We have shadow elves in this one who were exiled into the underground world. It follows the story of a raven, a dark elf who fled the underworld to come to the surface, learn about her origins, and attempt to unite the elven people. And then a portal opens and a bunch of demons start killing people. With the help of Wrath, a 10,000 plus year shadow elf and demigod, one of the first elves to ever walk the earth, in fact, she learns to fight off the demon hordes and maneuver her way around elven politics. This is definitely the one that inspired me the most. I really enjoyed Lee Dunning's take on elves and the politics. I have only read the first novel in this series so far, but I have big expectations for what comes next. I think there are 4 books available so far, so I will definitely keep you updated on those. And do go read them and give the author some stars on Amazon, because she definitely deserves it. The Black Elfstone by Terry Brooks. Okay, I made a mistake when I ordered this. I meant to order The Sword of Shannara, which is the first book in the Shannara series. But instead I ordered this one, which is the first book in the final series of the Shannara realm or whatever. So essentially, I started at the end. I read this when I was on a train journey and I almost missed my stop because of it. This is the ultimate page turner. It wasn't too much of a problem because it starts off like a new story with a new set of characters. The only moment where I felt a bit left out was they meet this character called Shay Onsford, I think, and they're like, oh, okay. So clearly I was supposed to know who this character was. And I didn't. So yeah, maybe I should go and read the rest of it. So this book tells the story of Tasha, who has a very rare form of magic called Wish Song. Her older brother Tavo also has this, only his magic is incredibly destructive and he can't control it. Tavo is sent away to go and live with their uncle, and after several years without having any news of him, Tasha decides to go see him and discovers that he's actually being abused. His uncle's treatment actually making him worse rather than better. Tasha decides to go and seek out the help of the world's greatest druid Drizzt, who at this point in the story is the target of an assassination plot. A lot happens in this novel. It was definitely the most compelling read. I especially liked Tavo. We get a lot of in-depth analysis into how the magic progresses and how he just completely loses control and progressively delves into evil. And we get to see inside his mind how he justifies his terrible actions. Very much like a Stephen King villain. The Blood of Elves by Andrzej Sapkowski. Okay, so there's a story behind this one. A while back, I read The Last Wish, which was the first Witcher book. It's a collection of short stories, and it was a particularly unpleasant experience. I really didn't like it. Following my 20-ish minute long review, I think a lot of people suggested that I read The Blood of Elves because it's the first actual novel in the series, and everyone was like, it's way better, you'll see, you'll like it. Yeah. So one of the issues I had was the writing style, and I did wonder whether or not it wasn't down to Sapkowski's actual writing, but more maybe some translating issue. So I decided to read The Blood of Elves in French to see if it made any difference. It doesn't. My issue really is with Sapkowski's writing style. It's not the translating. I don't like his writing style. It's bland, it's boring. I don't enjoy it at all. So I really did try and find like positive points to balance out the negative like ideas I had of it last time. The one thing I will say is the main character, whose name is apparently pronounced Geralt and not Geralt. I'm sorry I got that wrong, but I know nothing about The Witcher. Okay, I haven't played the video games, I haven't watched the TV series. He is slightly less unlikable in the sense that he doesn't slaughter random people when he wants to, which, to be honest, is setting the bar ridiculously low, but credit where credit's due. I still thought he was just really boring in this book. Like, I kind of regretted the guy who just whipped his sword out and cut people to bits, because, like, at least he did something. Another big issue I had was with the women in The Last Wish. I really didn't like the way women were represented in it, and that hasn't changed. I don't like the way women are represented in this book either, because they just basically want to throw themselves at Geralt. Like, that's it. It's all about taking their clothes off and throwing themselves at him. No one is that good in bed, okay? No, it's just no. At this stage, it kind of felt like some weird fetish by the author. Like, I really found it uncomfortable. There's also this young girl who's training to be a witcher, and she's like a young teen, I think, and they get this witch to come over and, like, talk her through girly things, I guess. And she gets super mad because the witches are making her train when she's got her period. Why is that a problem? Like, what does the author think happens to a woman's body when we have our periods? Like, it's not debilitating, Andrzej. We can function and do physical exercise and sport and that. Like, female athletes don't put off going to the Olympics because, oh, I can't, I've got my time of the month. So that was mildly infuriating. So yeah, I just ended up skipping through a bunch of pages because I thought it was incredibly boring. A lot of time goes by before anything interesting actually happens. I thought the characters were bland and one-dimensional. There was nothing really compelling about this, and I didn't finish it either. So yeah, I am definitively done with this series. And finally, The Elf and the Hunter by Aoi Umetaro. This is a manga. I have a big issue with this one. Manga characters. You have no business being this cute. You just don't. Like, just stop. Just cuteness overload. So this is the story of Magnet, a little elf, and her trusted huntsman, J.R.R. Now, when you need to go to a dungeon or on a quest, you need a certain number of artifacts that can come in handy, so you'll probably buy them from a special artifact store. I don't play these kind of games. But she's the one who makes them. She is a master craftswoman, and it is the cutest thing. She is considered the best in the business. world-renowned for her magical creations. We even get like recipes and stuff. This is something I find a lot in manga, is they like giving recipes and talking you through how we actually make these things, which again, adorable. Another thing I really enjoyed about this is she is tiny and she gets a lot of backlash for this. Like, people talk down at her or make fun of her because they like to patronize her because of her height, which I really relate to, being 5'1" or 152 in metric. People do tend to look down on short people. I guess it's because, well, when you look down at someone, you are looking down at a child, so it's okay to talk down at them and patronize them. It's not, okay? Just human beings are human beings. We deserve respect. Well, this is an elf, but still, she deserves respect. Okay, small people deserve respect. So, on that note, that's it. That's the video. Those are all the books that I found with elves in them. I'm probably going to do a part 2. I would like to do a part 2 because I still have some books with elves lined up. If you have any suggestions, I am open to them. On that note, do leave a comment. Tell me what you thought. Please subscribe to my channel. I mainly do reviews of fantasy novels and the occasional classic. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.